Hey guys, it's Mr. Avant. This is going to be a quick lesson that I'm going to record to help you if you missed today's live lesson. This is based on Module 5, which most of 4th grade should have their Module 5 books. This is Lesson 15. And what we want to do this week is try to quickly go over some of the material about fractions before we move to decimals next week, some new material. Now, I know a lot of you did not follow me. If you go back to the old Google Classrooms, you'll see lots of lessons. I did from lesson 12 all the way to lesson 35, to the end of Module 5. There were a lot of lessons in there, and I'm going to try to review a little bit of it before we move on. So this is going to be really quick, and I want you to pay attention. So let's go back to the basics. So the objective is I can find common denominators to compare two fractions using area models. Now remember, there was 2 or 3 ways that we compare two fractions, but I want you to look at the material from the problem set that I'm going to post. You're going to finish them using Cami. I'm going to go over 2 problem sets in the live lessons. These are the 2 problems I'm going to go over. This is 1B and 3D. Now the first one that we're going to go over, we're comparing the fractions 2/3 and 3/4. Remember, the top number is called the numerator, and the bottom number is denominator, and the top number represents the shaded areas, the bottom number represents the whole. How many parts are in the whole? The whole means one whole, the number 1. Okay, so let's do some shading. So we're comparing 2/3. So in Eureka, what they like to do is this little setup with the area model where one of them is vertical, one of them is horizontal, and what they're trying to do is make common denominators. How do I make these both the same at the bottom so I can compare them? At the moment, I can't compare 2/3 and 3/4 equally unless they both have the same parts at the bottom. So let's do that. So we have 2/3. There's 2 out of 3. And then we have 3/4. So that's 1, 2, 3 out of 4. Now what they're trying to tell you is we have to multiply in order to find a common denominator. What is the common denominator for 3 and 4? Well, if you just multiply 3 and 4, you get 12. So you have to multiply the same thing top and bottom. So 2/3 times 4/4 gives you the equivalent fraction. 4/4 gives me 8/12. So I can show that in my area model. If I go ahead and do some vertical division here, dividing this up, where's my black? Okay, so I have 1, 2 spaces, 3 spaces, 4 spaces. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 12. So 2/3 becomes 8/12 if you multiply it times 4. Now let's see what happens to 3/4. So if I multiply 3/4 times 3/3, then it becomes whatever I divide this into. So remember, we multiply across, 3 times 3, and then 4 times 3. So let's go ahead and divide it right now into 3, like this. So now I can count my new fraction. Instead of 3/4, now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I have 9 out of 12 altogether. So that becomes 9/12. Okay. Now the whole point of this is to compare two fractions. I have 8/12 and I have 9/12. Which one is bigger? Remember your symbols for comparing? You're comparing the left to the right. If the big side is pointing this way, you're saying that the left side is bigger than the right side. That's greater than. If the pointed end, the narrow end of this is pointing to the left side, that means the left side is less than the right side, or it could be equal to. So in this case, 2/3, when I find my common denominator of 12, 3 times 4, becomes 8/12. And 3/4, when I multiply times 3, gives me a common denominator of 12 on the bottom. I'm comparing 8 against 9. That is going to be less than. Now remember, there's that one last technique where we can cross multiply. If I cross multiply like this, you also get the same answer. 4 times 2 is 8 on this side. 3 times 3 is 9 on this side. You see how I get the same result? 8 is less than 9. Okay, let's look at 3D down here. Problem 3D is going to show us some fractions that we would call improper fractions. Remember, improper fractions have a larger numerator than the denominator. It is more parts than the whole. So we have a mixed number here. So we don't even have to go through all this stuff. We could cross multiply and find our answer. We'll do that too. But let's figure out what these are actually as a whole number and a fraction or a mixed number. If I have 11/7, remember that I can go ahead and decompose this. I know that, let me erase this. I know that 7 out of 7 is one whole. So we're going to say 7/7 equals 1. And then over here, what do I have left over? Well, I have to subtract 7 from 11. 7 from 11 is 4. So I have 4/7 left over. So what we're really saying here is that 11/7 is equal to 1 and 4/7. Okay, let's look at 5/3. It's bigger at the top than the bottom. 3/3 is equal to 1 whole. So let's decompose. 5/3, break it apart into 3/3 to pull out that 1 whole number. That equals 1. And then the remainder would be 3 minus 5, that is 2/3. So the other fraction is 1 and 2/3. Now what I'm really comparing is, I can eliminate this 1 here, and we're just comparing how much more we have after 1. We have 4/7 and 2/3. Well, let's go ahead and take 4/7 and multiply times 3, because we want to use the common denominator of 21. 3 times 7. So this becomes 12/21. That's this one right here. And now let's do 2/3. I have to multiply 7/7. That is equal to 2 times 7 is 14. 3 times 7 is 21. So now I'm comparing 12/21 over 14/21. The 12/21 is smaller than 14/21. 4/7 is equal to 12/21, and 2/3 is equal to 14/21. That means it's going to be less than. Okay, so that's 1. This is really called 1 and 12/21, and this is really called, instead of 1 and 2/3, it's 1 and 14/21. Okay, this is smaller than this mixed number. Now we could also cross multiply. What happens when we cross multiply? We have 7 times 5, that's 35, and then we have 3 times 11, that's 33. So 33 is also smaller than 35. Now I know I ran through this quickly, but this is how quick we're going to have to move in these little classes. I want you to, if you didn't see the live lesson, I want you to watch the Eureka video as well that I'm going to post. He'll go over it a lot more slowly for about 12 minutes or so. He's going to do the homework problems with you, and I want you to review on how to do this on your own. Good luck, and see you next time. Bye.